Welcome to OmniLove TV, where we explore the all-encompassing love within us and all around us. I'm your host, Lauren Peters.
I'm Lauren Peters, and welcome to another very special edition of OmniLove TV Expert Interviews. Today, you're going to learn how to develop self-love and overcome your destructive habits to achieve peace, happiness, and fulfillment. I'm excited to introduce my friend and health and wellness expert, Bexs, and founder of SexySobriety.com and vegansparkles.com. She's currently finishing her book that's focused on being sexy and sober, and recently launched her business academy, which helps health coaches to create their digital products. So thank you so much for being here on the interview today.
Thank you so much, Lauren. I'm so excited to be here.
And it's kind of wonderful. I think you're about the third Aussie that I'm interviewing on this show. So thank you for being third time's a charm, right?
Yeah, fabulous.
Okay, so to jump into the very first question, I am wondering, on the entrepreneur's journey, a lot of entrepreneurs have a story of how they started their heart-centered passion businesses. And I know that when it comes to being sexy and sober, there's a bit of a vulnerable story behind that. I really would love to know how you went about creating Sexy Sobriety.
Yes, well, so often, like you say, entrepreneurs, their journey starts from a struggle that they had themselves. And, years ago, I was working as a cost engineer for a global energy company. So I was doing very different work. And back in, it's just funny story because back in 2011, I decided to follow a vegan lifestyle. And that was how my first blog was born, Vegan Sparkles. And through that journey, I started to, previously I was like many women where I had a very dysfunctional relationship with food and my body. And when I started this food blog and I started to learn more about nutrition and looking after myself, I started to adjust that relationship with myself. And Sexy Sobriety was born of the same sort of thing where, it was really an evolution where I was starting to learn all of these different things about myself and how I could begin to heal my relationship with myself, because I didn't understand at the time that really it was all just a symptom of that dysfunctional relationship with myself. And as I started to learn all of these things, I started to help others with it. And that was how I eventually created Sexy Sobriety.
Okay, so do you have any little tiny stories in between that? I know that you started Vegan Sparkles. Mm. And at what point did you notice that your habits and struggles with food were kind of turning into something else? What were your struggles turning into after you kind of got the food in order?
Yeah, great question. Because I think, all along from the time I was a teenager, I would struggle with dieting. Every Monday morning I would be like, this week is going to be different. This week I will only eat salad. This week I will, it was very much a point of feeling like I wanted to punish myself or deprive myself. Very much I thought that my mind was in control and my body would just do what I told it to or else. And it was through that, creating that vegan food blog. And, I just created that because so many of my friends and family were asking me questions about what I was going to eat now that I had decided to follow a vegan lifestyle. And I chose to follow that because of the animals. So I didn't know anything about nutrition or anything at the time. And it was through that blog that to my surprise, that blog readership began to grow. And as it did, I started to feel a bit of a responsibility to be a healthy vegan and to be spreading a good message and not to just be eating a lot of junk food, which I was at the time. Anything that was vegan and processed or packaged, I was all up in it. Mm-hmm. And so I enrolled to study at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition to learn more about nutrition. It's a health coach course, but my intention was never to become a health coach because I had this long-term career. I'd been working in this career for almost 2 decades, and I didn't really, I was comfortable there. I wasn't completely fulfilled, but I felt comfortable, and I thought I would stay there until retirement, to be honest. So I thought this was just a beautiful hobby. I would learn more about nutrition that I could share and help be a better example. And the funniest thing happened when I was studying there. I was introduced to all of these holistic things that I had never thought about before. I thought of food as just in the way of it was just calories and it meant getting fatter or getting thinner. That was it. I didn't think about it as a way of self-care and looking after myself. And I didn't see the food-mood connection where what we eat changes the way that we think and feel, our emotions, and the way that we perceive the world. I mean, this was revolutionary to me. And so by the end of that year study, I decided, no, I want to be a health coach. I have to share this message. But I still had a binge drinking issue. There's a big drinking culture in Australia, as there are in many countries around the world. And in the corporate world in particular, everything is celebrated by big functions, big drinks. It's always going to the bar every single Friday night without fail. And although many people could go and have a couple of drinks and then go home, I wouldn't. I would be the one that was getting the messiest at the end of the night, and it just wasn't making me happy. Originally as I guess I was quite insecure, and I didn't really know or like or trust myself very much. So alcohol was a great crutch to lean on to give me that confidence that I thought, I wanted, that to give me that outgoing personality. But in the end, it wasn't making me happy. And so when I resigned from my corporate career to become a health coach, I had the health and nutrition and the self-care sort of under control, but as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of self-doubt and a lot of, uncertainty that comes up. And I found that I was leaning on alcohol even more than before. And it was becoming more and more of an unhealthy habit. And I got to the breaking point where I sat down in a Skype call like this with one of my beautiful coaching clients one day. And she said to me, when I feel lonely, I find myself reaching for a bottle of wine. And I heard myself say, well, that's okay. And I was horrified, absolutely disgusted with myself as soon as I heard the words leave my lips, because I know that it's not okay. It's never okay to numb ourselves to what's going on in our lives with alcohol, drugs, food, or any other unhealthy habits. And so in that moment, I decided, no, I need to sort this out for once and for all. And I guess, again, I was driven by wanting to be a better example, but also wanting to be a better example to myself, because it's hard to feel authentic with yourself when you know that you're a health and wellness coach, but you still have this very unhealthy habit going on. And so I embarked on a sobriety experiment.
I love that you call it an experiment.
It was an experiment. I was too scared to commit to it full, with my complete heart, because I wasn't sure how it would go. I mean, I'd been drinking for a good 20 years, and I thought it was part of my identity. I was always the one first at the bar, getting everyone to drink champagne and getting everyone all, excited and stuff. And so to take that away, suddenly I was like, well, who am I if I'm not that person when I'm out socially? And so it was a huge adjustment. And I lent on a lot of the things I had learnt during my studies at IAN and in becoming a holistic health coach and in overcoming my dysfunctional relationship with food to sort of heal myself and to turn things around and to really find my foothold in sobriety and to find that, hey, life's actually better on this side. And after that, I wrote an article on my blog all about the sobriety experiment, and I was terrified to share it because I thought, I'm a health and wellness coach. How will this be? Will people still want to come to me as clients? Because, will they trust that I'm not going to go off the rails or, drink too much? How will this be? I wasn't sure. And when I shared it, it was actually picked up by an Australian newspaper as well, which was
Mm-hmm.
terrifying again. But I received an outpouring of emails and from
Amazing.
other women who said that they were struggling with the same things. And it was through that I was inspired to create Sexy Sobriety to help them through the first few months, to show them what I had used and how I had applied it and how it had helped, and to help them. And yeah, it's just been an incredible experience.
That's amazing. I love that you had one specific moment that you remember where you just like shocked yourself so much. I mean, like, we all make mistakes. We're human, especially as coaches, when we're like, oh my God, did I just say that to my client? But that's a big one, you know? And especially as a health coach saying, oh, that's okay. You know, and then you're like, whoa, no, hold on, no, it's not okay. So it's amazing that you remember that one specific moment, which was essentially the spark to the whole journey to creating Sexy Sobriety.
Yeah.
So if you were to tell women one thing, women who are in the spot that you were in before Sexy Sobriety, you know, you've got your self-love down pretty well. You've got an amazing career, you're loving your relationship, but then there's just that one thing with alcohol and potentially food. What is the one thing that you might tell them now?
Yeah, I know. I mean, like you said, I love using the word experiment, and I think if you don't, I mean, the thing I always say to my beautiful, sexy sobriety clients is, we know what drinking's like. We know what that's like, what that cycle is like of feeling regret and remorse the next morning and feeling hungover and hating ourselves for it. What we don't know is a long period of sobriety. We don't know how that can be and what it can feel like and how amazing it can be unless we try it. And so that is why I sort of set Sexy Sobriety up as a 90-day experiment. So I'm like, if you don't feel 5 million times better at the end of it, then you can make a different decision. But if you do, and most of my clients do, then happy days. What an amazing, life-changing experiment it has been.
That's awesome. Okay, so what happened after you started to turn things around for yourself?
Yeah, so the first few months were really, really challenging. I mean, there's a lot that goes into sobriety as well. If you have been using alcohol as a crutch for a long time, because there are a lot of emotions that you haven't dealt with. Because I didn't have to deal with them because I just had another drink. If I wanted to relax, I wanted to be stress free, I wanted to celebrate. Any excuse, then I would reach for the drink. And I tricked myself into believing that it was that solution for me in every situation. But really, I was just numbing myself to real human emotions. And so to feel that full spectrum in the first few months was really confronting and really quite terrifying. And so, there's a lot of emotional maturity that comes with processing those emotions and working through them. And so I applied a lot of techniques like journaling and morning pages and meditation, long walks, and just feeling them, being at peace with just feeling them. So there's a lot of crying, there was a lot of tantrums, there was a lot of, mixed up jumble of emotions. And I just kept moving forwards, just allowing it and moving forwards.
Okay, yeah, it's very interesting to hear you say that because it's almost like it doesn't really matter if you use alcohol or food or sex or whatever to numb the pain when you finally decide that you're no longer willing to compromise your happiness and your full amount of self-love. There is this really excruciating process of getting to know and starting a relationship with your actual emotions. And not just the ones that come up on a day-to-day basis, but the ones that you might have put away from 10 years ago, which are more charged than the ones that you're feeling today. I mean, I will admit, even right now, I'm still learning how to even name emotions sometimes when they come up. Instead of triggering to what might be coming up for me, slowing down, maybe writing in a journal, and just identifying what emotion am I feeling right now.
Yeah.
Because I think for me, I've used work as my numbing component. I've always been proud, like, oh, I don't have vices, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, no, actually, I use work as a
Mm-hmm.
way to numb my pain, my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So I just had that realization. So thank you for sharing that.
Mm.
What did you begin to do after you? It's not that that process ever really like cuts off and you move on to the next step, right? So,
If only.
yeah, what was that transition like for you?
Into like working through those first few months, you mean? Or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and so I guess I started to be more truthful with myself, because like you say, most people do, we reach for things to make ourselves feel better, whether that's online shopping or working too much, or there's a million distractions out there that we can think, oh, I feel now that I'm sort of starting to be able to name those emotions, and I still struggle with it, as you do as well,
Mm-hmm.
of being able to say, okay, I feel anxious or I feel insecure. It's very easy to grab for an external source to start to try
Facebook.
to yes, exactly. Social media scrolling.
I want to know if in the comments or whatever, please be honest right now and tell us that you are addicted to Facebook so that you don't have to feel.
It is right. And the funny thing is that it's so ironic, because Facebook often makes us feel worse because we see things on there that we don't like. So it makes us feel worse, but it's so hard to stop that scrolling.
Right, and most social media. And so to spin that more positively, it is kind of wonderful that, we have a little more control over who's on our feed and stuff like that. But social media in general, it has become a huge
Yes.
numbing agent.
Huge, and smartphones in general,
Mm-hmm.
and so I mean, that social media addiction, yeah, that didn't exist years ago, obviously, and I see that with a lot of my coaching clients as well, the anxiety born of it. And so yeah, it's reaching for all of these things. So for me, it was about being honest with myself and sitting with my emotions and sort of saying, okay, well, I love the saying, when we know better, we do better. And that's what I kept saying to myself. It just is a kindness mantra to say, well, yes, you might have messed up in the past. Many, many, many times I messed up, but I'm doing better now because I'm learning. I'm sort of, moving on. And I think that forgiveness is so crucial to being able to move forward. It's very hard to move forward when we're still hating ourselves for mistakes that we made 10 years ago.
Okay, so we've got slow down a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
understand that you kind of want to make this decision to do your experiment,
Mm-hmm.
feel your feels,
Yep.
move on a little bit, and then understand that you're still learning, forgive yourself. What's the next step?
The next step, I think, is applying self care. I think it's all about kindness and finding techniques that work for you. And, when I talked about looking at the holistic view of wellness, there are so many things that make that up. I used to believe it was just nutrition, but no, it's very hard to feel happy. You can eat all the broccoli in the world, but if you're not looking at all the other elements in your life, like relationships and connection, creativity, because humans, we want to be creative in whatever capacity in order to feel fulfilled. And so, there's physical exercise, which helps us to feel better mentally and emotionally as well. And really looking at all of those holistic things and seeing which ones can I try to make myself, feel better and move forward in a positive and inspiring way, because different techniques and tools work for different people. It's a beautiful jigsaw puzzle that we've got to figure out for ourselves.
Oh, yeah. Why is it so complicated? How do you sort of simplify that process for your clients?
So within Sexy Sobriety, it's a 90-day experiment, and each day we look at a new activity. And I do this with Vegan Sparkles when I have pure health coaching clients over there as well, is we look at one thing at a time. So for example, we usually look at two per week. So for example, when a health coaching client will first come to me and say, I don't feel well, I'll say, okay, how much water are you drinking? And are you eating many greens? So let's look at those two things first. And once they've they've got a handle on that, then we start looking at the next thing. Okay, well, how is your mental health feeling? Have you tried meditating for 5 minutes a day? Let's try that. Once you've got the hang of that, we'll move on to the next thing. We'll move on to doing maybe 2 exercise classes per week, but really building a strong foundation, not by having a list of 28 things to master all at once, but just that saying what's 1 or 2 things we can bring in, and then we'll naturally crowd out the unhealthier habits.
Okay, and so what ends up happening is that they become habits after, say, like 2 weeks or something?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the person and depends on what the new habit is that they want to take on. But eventually, if they just start looking at it, in the past, I was always looking at health and wellness as a deprivation and punishment. So I would think, well, you can't have chocolate biscuits and you can't have wine and you can't have this. It's a very negative way to think. And now what I encourage my clients to do is to look at, okay, what can we do? What can we bring in? If you're not quite ready to let go of those chocolate biscuits, could you have a glass of water first? Could you eat an apple before you eat the biscuit? That sort of thing, so that you're naturally bringing in. And I say to them, when you wake up in the morning, think of one thing. What's one thing that you can do to take care of yourself today? And they start thinking that way, then it becomes about caring for yourself rather than depriving yourself.
Sounds like it becomes a little fun too.
Yeah, right.
If I do this thing, I'm going to get the actual thing that I want. And, from my life coaching education, I've known that learning things and creating new habits takes repetition, but also fun. You can't learn something by just repeating it. If you're not having fun, you're not going to keep doing it.
Exactly.
So there's a step after understanding this holistic view of healing. And you talked to me earlier about it being truthful to yourself and kind of looking internal. Mm-hmm. What is that part about?
Yeah, so that was, it was about being honest about my past, about where I want to go as well, about the emotions that I'm feeling. And it was also about looking at my lifestyle. I was in a relationship a few years ago that I found myself in, but it wasn't really truly fulfilling. It wasn't truly what I wanted, but I got swept up in it and I just went along with it. And the same sort of thing with my career. Now, I was working as a cost engineer and that was fine. It was fine, but it didn't set my soul on fire or anything like that. But I went along with it. It was high paying and it was comfortable and it's what I thought everyone does. I wasn't honest with what I truly want, with my heart's desires. And so I started to sit down and look at that and think, well, I don't have to live like everyone else. It's safe to be different. It's safe to want what I want and to create the beautiful existence that I truly dream of. So really breaking it down and looking at, what sort of life do I really want? What would make me truly happy?
Yeah, and that's interesting. So, we're all born to be great. Mm-hmm. It takes some of us longer than others to figure that out. Mm-hmm. You've got people in the corporate world who are actually living in their true greatness in the corporate world, right? Mm-hmm. But then this other pool of people who are doing it just because they think that's how they were supposed to do it the whole time.
Exactly.
And then you also have entrepreneurs. They don't all get the golden ticket. You even have entrepreneurs who are building businesses that they completely hate.
Yes.
And they're still not living in their greatness.
Right.
And so this being truthful to yourself part, I'm hearing you talk about it. A lot of people, I notice that when they come to a point of wanting to be truthful to themselves, there's sort of this gap of wanting to be truthful and actually being truthful. A lot of them are kind of at a loss of like, what do I actually want? Like, I don't know. So
yes,
how do you help them along that process?
Yes, it is. It's funny because it seems like a simple question. I was even sitting opposite a client the other day and I said to her, she was trying to decide between 2 career paths. And I said to her, when you imagine your most wonderful work day, what does it look like? What does it feel like? And she said, wow. She said, it's such a simple question, but it's really hard. And I said, it is really hard. Go away and meditate on it, journal on it, really figure out what it would be and visualize yourself. Visualize yourself in that career path as opposed to this one, and see which one feels like it's lighting your heart on fire. That's not oh, I should do that because, the figures look better, or whatever else it is, but what feels good on the inside. And it's a process of really sitting down and sitting with it for a long time as well. It doesn't always come so simply. Another exercise I do with my clients is to visualize themselves in the future. So 1 year from now, what are you doing? You're completely happy. What are you happy doing? What is it? What's around you? What's going on for you? And so just a lot of, I guess, future tripping and seeing what what feels good.
Absolutely. I'm trying to think back. I've done this with a few people recently because, it's a little bit of the new year and a lot of people are starting to reimagine what they want by the end of the year. And, they just need a little guidance. And so do you have a section in your Sexy Sobriety where you're able to guide them through like the simple question of what is it that you want?
Absolutely. And so that's how I do it. Like, we have journaling exercises and visualization and I guess questions where I say, is you have this choice or this choice, which one is more exciting to you? When you sit down and you're really truthful, sit in a quiet space and think it through. And you don't have to come up with the answer immediately either. And also these desires, it's very natural for them to evolve with you. So as they find themselves changing and as they develop emotional maturity very quickly in the first few months of Sexy Sobriety, and they find themselves changing very quickly, those desires can change as well. And so just allowing that to be to be what it is, and to let their heart guide them, and to listen to their intuition as well. Often when we've been using these crutches or these dysfunctional habits or patterns for a long time, we lose touch with our intuition. Many of my clients, when I first start working with them, they're like, I have no idea. I hear people talk about intuition, I have no idea what that is. And so, it's just starting to just sit down with themselves and see, listen to your body, feel what's going on inside, feel what gives you tingles of excitement, what might feel scary but exciting. That's the right one.
I love telling people when I'm explaining intuition and being in your body, and this is just me, I have a bias because I am the host of On the Love TV. It's all about love. I think the heart is the door to the soul. And so I tell a lot of people, like, visualize through your heart, create what you want through your heart. It's like we grow up in a society that's so based on the mind and rationality. Yes. It's like flip it on its head and just start living through here for a little bit. That'll be my experiment.
I love it.
Okay. So once we begin to be truthful to yourself, you already started to talk about being authentic with what you want in your external world. So relationships, what else is there at the end of this cycle?
Yeah, and so also with relationships, being more authentic in those as well, because I think when we are living a life that doesn't truly light us up, that's not authentic, it's hard to have authentic connections as well. Like when I think back now, although I didn't realize it at the time, my connections with colleagues and even, that old relationship I was in and with other people, it was superficial because I couldn't go deeper, because I would then have to face the fact that I was living in this life that wasn't truly what I wanted. So, there was a lot of just very superficial layer of dealing with people and interacting with people. And it's only now that I have sort of created this life and moved into what I truly want to do, who I truly want to be, letting go of so many things that didn't serve me, that the walls started to come down and I started to have very, much deeper connections with people. And constantly, I always have goosebumps when I talk to people now, and I never would have had that before because it was always very, it would be small talk. It would never be deep and meaningful. And the only deep and meaningfuls I would have were after 28 bottles of wine. And so,
Full circle.
Exactly. Now they're real, and I remember them all.
So I'm trying to remember what we were talking about because that was funny. You mentioned, okay, so it's essentially you are exploring intimacy, deeper connection, and a different type of compassion for other people's experience. It's like no longer about you being contracted and in your own bubble and really afraid to just express and like reach over and touch someone. Can you talk a little bit more about like that journey to intimacy?
That's such a beautiful image, and it is about that, right? Because it's becoming more intimate with yourself, then you can become more intimate with others. And I think also as you're doing all of these processes, as you're learning to love and care for yourself, you naturally don't want to have those superficial relationships anymore. You naturally want to dig a bit deeper, and you are more comfortable with yourself. When you're not comfortable with yourself, like back in years ago, I would feel very insecure and anxious and awkward sometimes. And I still feel awkward sometimes. But now I'm like, oh yeah, I felt awkward. It's okay. It's not a fatal flaw. It's just part of my character. You're more accepting of yourself. And so then you can go forth into the world and everyone likes me. That's okay, because I like myself. And I think that's such an important thing to bring to the world, where you're not trying to win over people. Like, for example, when I think back a few years, I think and not at the time I didn't believe I was, but now I think some of my behavior was quite manipulative, wanting people to be in my world in a certain way, or wanting them to think of me in a certain way. And once you get to the place where you're like, well, I totally love and accept myself no matter what anyone else thinks, then you go forth with that sort of energy, and you're like, well, if that person doesn't, if I'm not their cup of tea, it's okay.
Absolutely. I've learned that so many times. I continue to learn that. Just when I think that I have that master and somebody messaged me some shit on Facebook and I'm like, oh, I feel so bad about myself. So, one
process, right?
Yeah, one way I know that I need to work more on my self-love, because it's a cycle, right? We go in and out of it sometimes. A very huge cue to me that I'm not happy with myself is when I'm walking down the street and I don't even have the courage to look up at strangers and smile at them. That's a big one for me. When I notice myself trying to hide from them, I'm like, oh man, I need to do something here.
Yeah.
Because I really do enjoy connecting with people that I don't know, and like simple smile, it's really beautiful. It feels wonderful. It's almost like getting oxytocin in the air. And so I would encourage you guys, the viewers, to ask yourself, what are your cues that tell you that you're not loving yourself enough?
I love that.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, retreating into yourself is a sign, right?
And then, this isn't necessarily part of the whole discussion, but it makes me wonder, introversion and extroversion, we're all kind of both at some point or another. But like, what parts about introversion are healthy, and what parts are showing us that there's something we really need to look at? That's just my question. We don't need to answer it.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. Is it that you're at home happy with yourself, just having a time out, pottering away and happy as anything? Or is it a hiding?
And then, okay, I'm thinking more. When we flip it on its head, when we think of super extroverts, the one who like want all the attention, I guess there's an opportunity there to look within as well.
Always.
Yeah, this is huge on self-love. We're going to be talking a lot more about this at Omni Love. So I'm so excited to be able to, I think this is one of the interviews where we really delved deep into self-love for the very first time. So thank you for being that expert for us.
My pleasure.
And then I want to go into the final part of this interview. you talked to me about this amazing experiment that you wanted to tell us about. So what is that?
Yes, so this is one I created before I created Sexy Sobriety. And it's on the Vegan Sparkles website, and it was for all of my blog readers and health and wellness coaching clients. And it's called the Sparkle Experiment. And it's all about vitality and getting your energy back and getting your mojo back and feeling amazing. And it looks at the holistic view. So we start with body, and then we look at mind and soul. And it's a 10-day experiment with an activity that everyone can do each day that builds on each other, just like we were talking about building a strong foundation and then trying something else. And because I'm all about the experiments, you even have places where you can record how you felt that day and really start to build that awareness around what's going on for you and how different aspects of holistic health and wellness make you feel.
Okay. So if we were to kind of digitally open that or virtually open that right now for the next 5 days, what might you ask us to experiment?
Yes. So for the first 3 days, we look at body. And so we look at, drinking more water, eating more greens, nutrition, and looking after our bodies. And there's also some, I'll get to that in a minute, but the second phase is all about mind. And so we look at, technology detox and meditation and things like that. And then the third one's about soul or spirit. So doing things that really help you to connect with yourself and that make your heart sing. So things like creativity and connection and community. And then we have at the end some beautiful treats, right? Because you've done this experiment, you deserve some treats. So some beautiful ways that you can care for yourself. And as you go through each day, you record how it makes you feel, what your moods and energy are like, and what else is going on for you. And as you journal those as well, quite often it's the journaling that can really help you to connect as well. You're doing these exercises, but as you're doing each daily exercise, you're becoming more aware of what else is going on for you. So it's a beautiful journey into awareness, and it's a beautiful self-care experiment as well. And then at the end, you can record all of your findings, and then you can choose to go through it again.
Amazing. And so that will be a free gift that we will offer for you, viewers. And I'm going to go ahead and put all of her links below this video. And I want to kind of finish off this interview with one last question. What happens when we don't do this work? What happens in our life?
Yes, usually it snowballs, right? We become more unhappy. We make more poor decisions. We reach for more unhealthy patterns of behavior, and it can just get really out of hand. I mean, I found that I was, just finding myself flailing and feeling really unwell mentally and emotionally and physically, obviously with hangovers and so on. But the part that really inspired me to change the most was the mental and emotional part. I mean, I think as humans, we all want to be happy. We all want to be right. That's our joyful state, is the one that we all most want to get to. And so it's very hard to get to that joyful state when we are stuck in these destructive patterns of behavior.
Yeah. And it essentially comes down to you deserve more.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's how we're going to end this. I'm so excited that you came on the show so quickly. And I would love to have you back on once your book releases.
I would love that, Lauren. That'd be so exciting.
Absolutely. So have a wonderful rest of your day. It's nighttime here in San Diego. And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.